one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sully. Come back. Not that you need an invitation, but. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Pro Tem Dodson.
Here.
Councilmember Gleason.
Here.
Mayor Gooch.
Here.
Councilmember Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Hensley.
Here.
Councilmember Hope.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you. Our first order of business, Madam Clerk.
Under proclamations and public recognitions, we have a proclamation paying tribute to Mark Cantrell.
Move for approval.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. This proclamation will be given by Ms. Hickman, Staff Liaison for the Beer Permit Board, and John Hedrick, Staff Liaison for the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board. We have several members of Mark's family here, including his children, Emily and Garrett, his mother, Rita Cantrell, and Jen Cantrell.
John and I wanted to give you all this together because I was the staff liaison for the Beer Permit Board and John was the liaison for the Rec and Parks Board. And both of us worked with Mark closely. He was even in a leadership role on both of those boards. And so John and I thought it was appropriate that we honor him tonight and thank you for sharing him with us in all of his service to Oak Ridge. And I have the proclamation, and then I also have a key to the city that you all can frame or display however you would like. But I think I do have to tell a funny story on Mark. He was vice chair of our beer board, and our chair gave him a very big responsibility. He always had to tell the applicants that came in for their beer permit that don't be afraid to call the police. We'd rather you call the police than have something bad happen. That was his speech, and nobody could give it but Mark, and he did it so well. So we loved him very much, and I'm going to let John say a few words if he wants to, but we're honored to have known him. So.
Thank you, Beth, and thank you also on behalf of the Recreation and Parks Board and the department for allowing Mark to work with us for such a long time. He was a tremendous contributor to the board, a voice of reason and intelligence, and his role as vice chairman he did a great job, and we really, really enjoyed working with him and miss him terribly.
Mr. Hope.
So the reason Mark did such a great job on speeches is because I've known Mark since I was 16. His mom gives these great speeches, and whenever Mark got his license, she gave him the speech about no speeding, no, keep your left foot down and look both ways, and he's just great at speeches because of his mom. And now the speech has been passed on to them, and the word is give yourself the speech.
Mr. Hope.
Yeah, I just want to say on a personal note, me and Mark helped coach Garrett when Garrett was 5 or 6 years old, something like that, in soccer, and he was a man that just gave his time to everything, his community and to his family, and we really appreciated the time we had with Mark. I really enjoyed having him as an assistant coach when we were coaching soccer together.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Ms. Cantrell.
Being on the beer board, he loved being on the parks board, he loved coaching soccer with the kids, he just loved the people, Oak Ridge and the people in it. Really did. Thank you.
Thank you. Next proclamation, Madam Clerk.
A proclamation designating April 12th, 2023 as Holocaust Remembrance Day. I think it should be April 18th.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. I'm going to ask Councilwoman Smith to present the proclamation to Ms. Bogard. and others. Okay.
It's important to remember the Holocaust every year, something we should not ever forget. And I greatly appreciate all that you've done to make the memory of the Holocaust real. Happy to share this proclamation, can provide some remarks. Would like?
Yes, they're afraid to be in the picture.
Thank you. Can I say a few words?
Oh, yes, please say a few words.
Okay. So I wanted to say thank you to City Council and Mark Watson, who I won't be able to stand up and receive the proclamations from anymore. But good luck to you in your future, and we appreciate all that you've done. But also thank you to the City of Oak Ridge, who comes and attends this community remembrance service. That really means a lot to us. And I want to talk about the teachers from the Oak Ridge school system. People like Julie Kinder McMillan, who has been teaching at Robertsville 8th grade Holocaust studies for over 20 years. And also Steve Reddick and my good friend, who of course I can't remember her name, Dorothy DeVan, who's a retired Oak Ridge school teacher who also taught Holocaust at Jefferson. We have an adult education class now that Steve and Dorothy are teaching. We've been doing that for 10 years, and this woman right here, come here for just a second, Jinx Watson, who was also at one time worked for the Oak Ridge school system, she developed the original adult ed class that we are continuing with, and she is now working with the Oak Ridge school system in the background to get a Holocaust course as an elective at the high school. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to, but you can. Okay. I said. Anyway, I just really appreciate the support that Oak Ridge gives to this really important day in the memory of my mentor and lifelong friend, Mary Kimmelman.
There you go.
So thank you.
Thank you. Next proclamation, Madam Clerk.
A proclamation designating April 23rd through 29th as Library Week.
Move for approval.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Mayor Pro Tem Dodson will present the proclamation on behalf of the city, and I believe that Ms. Madigan Wessels, who's a Jefferson Middle School student and one of Mr. Dodson's students, is going to be here to accept the proclamation.
I got to say a few words about Madigan. Again, Madigan is one of my students at Jefferson Middle School. We have an opportunity, a great opportunity, to work with Julie Fortner and the Oak Ridge Public Library as they're doing the remodel in the children's library. Madigan actually was one of the people who designed the new mural that will be installed over there in just a few weeks, hopefully. And all the students in our 7th and 8th grade elective class, which is about 50 students, will all take part in this mural. And it's just a great partnership between the arts and our library. We have a jewel of a library. In fact, we're having a kindergarten through 12th grade art exhibition over there currently. So I'm looking forward to doing a lot of things with our public library, but I'm just so proud of Madigan and my students for the time they spent on this and the creativity they spent, and I'm looking forward, as you all will, to seeing this mural completed. And Julie, thank you for being there for our library and everything that you all do for our community. It's just a great place to visit, and hopefully more of my students will visit, not just to see the mural, but to also check out books. So I want to go ahead and present this, and we'll let you hold that, Madigan. Okay, Julie, would you like to say a few words? Okay.
First, I want to say thank you to Madigan for her hard work and listening to her teacher. Always a good idea. And I want to take a second to say thank you to Dr. Watson for his guidance and support of the library over my tenure. I wanted to show a few slides of the library so that we can show off some of the work that we have been doing. Under Dr. Watson's guidance, we have had the funds to renovate our library. So if you can back up to that very first slide. Can, is there one with some statistics on it? Yeah. So we actually had a very different National Library Week planned, but certain current technology events changed our plan. So I hope that you, in front of you, you have a bookmark that shows our mission statement and what we do. So this is our new current circ desk. This is our new book section, our reading area. This was our Oak Ridge room where we keep the record of the business that you do at each of these meetings. This is what it used to look like, and this is what it now looks like. From the inside, this was our meeting room, and this is now our meeting room. We have a lot more renovations coming your way. This time next year I'll have more updates for you. But thank you for everything that you do for the library.
Just before you leave, I think it'd be timely for us to remember that the vision of the Oak Ridge Public Library is to be forward-thinking and community-centered, to empower the future of Oak Ridge by fostering connections among all citizens and the resources needed to live, learn, govern, and play. The Oak Ridge Public Library is an independent public library funded by the City of Oak Ridge with support from the Friends of Oak Ridge Public Library. The library provides access to over 154,000 popular books, movies, audiobooks, newspapers, magazines, and many more in digital format. The Oak Ridge Room housed with the library preserves the history of the daily life in the secret city, Oak Ridge, as well as the municipal history from the time the gates to the city opened. Our programs sponsored by the Friends of the Library range from toddler story time to technology labs to book clubs. And we thank the public for your support, and we certainly thank the staff of the public library and the support that it has received over the years from Mr. Watson and the staff of the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next proclamation, Madam Clerk.
A proclamation designating April 2023 as Fair Housing Month.
Move for approval.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. On behalf of City Council, Mr. Hope will present the proclamation to Mr. Blasius, Director of Planning and Development.
What's remarkable about the fair housing market and this month that we're celebrating it in is that this ordinance has been on the books in Oak Ridge for 54 years. Since 1969, we've been working and striving to have fair market valued homes and housing in our community. That speaks a lot to our community and to the people that help us with the Housing Authority and everything they do.
Thank you very much, Councilman Hope. Briefly, I want to thank City Council, the Mayor, and the administration for recognizing Fair Housing Week every year. As Councilman Hope mentioned, it's been a long-standing tradition in Oak Ridge. The beginning of Fair Housing Week came about after the adoption of the National Fair Housing Law in 1968. And I want to note what I think is really important is that Oak Ridge began this recognition in 1969. So it has always been an important thing for the community to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to live in a place regardless of race, creed, religion, etc. And we can be proud of that.
We're now on the next section of the agenda, which is special reports. And without objection, I think it would be appropriate if we change the order and have our next order of business, which would be the presentation by the Oak Ridge Housing Authority on proposed new housing project, and Ms. Maria Catron Executive Director is here, and Mr. Tom Behan, former mayor and chairman of the Public Housing Authority. So if you all would come forward and present the report, we'd appreciate it.
I just want to start off by saying good evening and thank you to the City Council. Thank you to Dr. Watson. I really appreciate it. This is a culmination of a lot of hard work to get to this point. The Housing Authority has, together with the staff and our board, Mr. Behan chairs our Development Corporation, and Jean Lanthrop chairs our Housing Authority Board. We have been meeting several different times in the last year or so, strategically planning and seeing the ways that as a housing authority we can work cooperatively with the city to move forward affordable housing as well as just development in general throughout the city of Oak Ridge. In that process of strategic planning, we've determined that there are opportunities to move forward affordable housing, specifically in the Scarborough community. One of the things that we have done early on is meet with the community itself. We've had 2 meetings to date with the Scarborough community to talk about revitalization of the community as a whole, but specifically about affordable housing within that community. I'm speaking is the community as a whole, but also there is a piece of property that's adjacent to the Scarborough Community Center that the city currently holds. And what we would be asking from the City Council is that as we progress through conversations with the community to develop that for affordable housing and to come back to you at a later date with a plan to put forward affordable housing within that particular piece of property, and then a revitalization plan for the community as a whole.
Councilman Hammond?
Thank you. Just wanted to affirm the meetings with the community. Both were well attended, one at the Scarborough Community Center and one at Oak Valley Baptist Church, both of which received strong support. So one, I wanted to acknowledge that. Two, I personally wanted to state that given the housing opportunities for those like the individuals who showed up in that meeting, like the single parent who couldn't afford a home in Oak Ridge but wanted to stay and is staying with her mother, or the young man who recently graduated who also couldn't afford to stay and was having to stay with his mother, or really even the member of my church who is currently at a motel or a hotel here in Oak Ridge because she, the individual she was renting from, chose to sell the home and she can't find a place. And so individuals who are like this, whose voice was represented in that community and in those meetings, given that, given the fact that the rental housing that is being built that we see, particularly Main Street Lofts right over here and places like that, are starting at like $1,400 for 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom. And then lastly, the Oak Ridge Housing, the Oak Ridge Chamber of Commerce did a housing study. I'm not sure if you've seen that, but in that they note that the housing cost here in Oak Ridge since 2016 has gone up 49%, from an average of $150,000 to $300,000. And so giving all of those factors that are playing out in the growth of Oak Ridge, I'm really, really excited about this opportunity to actually service those whom we have been called to service and those who are historically disadvantaged. I wanted to state all of that for me. Question for you, and this is really just an opportunity for you to publicly speak to the one concern that the community did raise, and it came up and it was a significant concern, and so I wanted to at least ask you and give you the opportunity to share that here, and that is with regards to home ownership. The community certainly didn't want to necessarily see an all rental kind of property. They were really, really interested in making sure there was some home ownership opportunities associated with this project. That really was the primary concern. Do you mind speaking to that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman Hammond. Yes, homeownership, that's one thing I can say from the Housing Authority's perspective. You know, our mission is to revitalize and stabilize communities, and it takes all types of housing to do that. Homeownership is a key ingredient in that process, so we absolutely hear that concern, and we want to make sure that both the council and the community knows that homeownership will be part of that overall revitalization strategy.
Thank you so much. Lastly, I can't let this moment go without giving a shout out to your daughter, my good friend, the coolest young lady in Oak Ridge. God bless you, my friend. Thank you so much, and thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Ms. Smith.
Catherine? Yes. Yeah. I'm excited to see what you're planning to do to create workforce housing here in the city. Wondering if there are policy statements that council needs to make to help you go forward with getting your ducks in a row to receive funding and investment, whatever patterns are needed. What do we need to do to help support you besides identifying this parcel of land?
Thank you for asking that question. Yes, I want to say the best way that we can move forward with that is you all have adopted the blueprint plan. We know that that is a work of progress that was put together that identified a lot of different avenues as it relates to housing and infrastructure. And as we move forward and identify areas like Scarborough or other areas for redevelopment within the community, I would ask that the Housing Authority have the opportunity to come back to you in the future and provide maybe an addendum to that particular document to really focus in that redevelopment strategy, so Housing Authority can then seek specific funds that would make moving of Housing Authority's opportunities to create affordable housing in Oak Ridge possible.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor? Mr. Hensley.
Yeah, one comment, and that is the next step for Wayne is the new comprehensive plan.
Yes, sir.
And we've actually hired a new planner that's going to be his main job. So you're definitely a stakeholder in the comprehensive
Absolutely.
plan. So we want your input.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. We'd be glad to participate. We've actually started that process. Thank you very much.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Dodson.
Yeah, and this necessarily isn't a question, but I wanted to thank a few organizations. First of all, I'd like to thank Habitat for Humanity for all they do to make housing affordable, as well as ADFAC and all they're doing as well. So you've got a village, if you will, that's doing everything we can to bring the cost of housing down. And that's one of the things that a lot of us feel that in the city of Oak Ridge, while it's great that we're growing retail-wise and residential-wise, but we also need to make sure we look at those people who not necessarily can't afford some of those higher-end houses, but very good quality homes as well. So I'd like to just thank them as well.
Absolutely. That's one thing that I have to say since coming to Oak Ridge. The nonprofit entities that are focused on housing, we have a very good working relationship because it truly takes a partnership to grow. Not one entity by ourselves can actually do what the city needs to accomplish as a whole.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right, our next report is going to be on the cybersecurity incident and recovery. Amy Fitzgerald, Director of Governmental Affairs and Information Services, is going to give us a briefing on that.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I'm going to go over 4 items tonight in this special report, and we're going to talk about the information regarding the attack, the recovery efforts and responses, and expenditures, emergency expenditures that we have undertaken. And then we're going to give you an update on the utility billing office and what's going on there. So in your packet, there is a good summary of the special report, but I want to highlight several items. I do want to preface my remarks by gratefully acknowledging the support of city leadership. The citizens and businesses who were disrupted by the incident our colleagues in the city schools who helped us out, ORNL, our support contractors, and my fellow employees and staff, many of whom had been working practically around the clock to respond to the incident and to restore operations. So with that said, I want to point out this is still an ongoing investigation, but as you know, 3 weeks ago today, our city systems were attacked with malware, and operations were immediately shut down, and specialists were brought in to help us assess the situation. Fortunately, our public safety, police, fire, utility operations, water, wastewater, and electric services were not affected. The primary affected areas were the city's business operations, including our email and internet services. So over the following days, since the event has occurred, we have been, as I said, pretty much working nonstop with our specialist that was brought in to help us assess the situation, incident response, and to conduct the forensic analysis that is needed to be able to help with the ongoing investigation. So in terms of the recovery efforts and responses, as you can imagine, we had, to assess and review every single piece of hardware and computer and laptop in the city operations, our servers, our network, and everything. So it has been an extraordinary effort, and I just am very pleased that we are making good progress every day. I did want to point out that we do have a disaster recovery plan in place for this type of incident, and it has been largely followed. I think all the years of working with emergency response exercises with our federal, state, and local partners has really helped us prepare for this kind of incident, whether it's a tornado. In this case, it was not. But we have really made a lot of, obviously, lessons learned. Each and every one of our policies and procedures are being reviewed from top to bottom, and we are working with the experts to review all of those and are certainly going to be following the recommendations. I do want to point out there remains no evidence that any credit card information or taxpayer or utility customer information was compromised, so we are grateful for that. However, in the course of doing the forensic analysis, we have information that one personnel file with what we believe was some employee independent information was accessed, but we have no evidence that it was extracted or shared. So because of this, we don't know whether the file contained information about all city employees, but out of an abundance of caution, we are implementing a credit monitoring service that has been engaged to assist city employees with signing up for that service. So what I would like to do, I'm going to just give you a summary of the emergency purchases that have been made. We will have some ongoing expenses that we will certainly report when we have the final information about that. But to give you an idea, we have spent about $500,000 in emergency purchases to date as a result of the incident. The forensic analysis and incident response, we have expended about $60,000 in emergency services. IT support services related to the incident response and recovery, we have spent about $90,000. We have spent quite a bit on hardware that includes purchasing additional server drives for a new server that we had purchased a couple years ago almost for our new software project, and that is about $88,000. We have Ironically, we're coming to City Council at this meeting to seek your approval on a contract to implement and migrate a new email service to put our email off-premise. And so we have completed working on that migration and subscription services. So the email migration in first part of that subscription is going to be about $39,400. And then for the monthly service, the subscription, which is where they are all going, for the 1 year is $137,016. We have spent a new antivirus and endpoint detection and response protection that's been implemented for $67,842. When the incident occurred, in order to help keep city business operations ongoing, we had to go out and purchase additional computer hardware, laptops, printers, some PCs, and that is $15,181.96. We had to purchase additional hotspots, and I do want to again say my appreciation to Doug Kofer and folks at the school system as they helped us come over and work with our staff to get those deployed quickly. So we do appreciate their assistance on that effort. We spent $541 on meals for emergency workers and staff over the past 3 weeks, $32.95 on gas. We had, in order to complete payroll, we had our IBM contractor come in and help our business office and finance get that done. It was $2,433.75. We have spent $2,320 on legal assistance, and then finally the credit monitoring services is $9,488.60. So that comes up to a total, as I said, of $515,813.35. So I wanted to, unless Jack or the manager has something else to add, I wanted to, again, let you know that our staff and our folks have been working really nonstop, and I am so grateful for my colleagues and for the folks in the community who have been very understanding. No one ever wants to go through something like this, but I can assure you we're putting measures in place, additional measures in place that are going to significantly reduce the potential risk for this ever happening again. As everyone says that I talk to in IT, you know, you're not ever going to get 100% guarantee, but we are doing our best to make sure that there is not a repeat of the occurrence.
All right, Ms. Fitzgerald, if you would be sure and provide a detailed list of those expenditures that you just went over, so we'll have those for our records.
Okay.
There will be some impacts on our business, utility business office customers, our utility customers, and I think Ardo Ba is going to take just a minute to discuss with you what our customers can expect to see in terms of changes.
Mayor and Council, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our residents and our customers for their patience and understanding as we navigate through these challenges. On March 20th, as everyone knows, we got hit with these issues, and at that time, a little over half of our customers have already had their meters, electric and water meters, read. So we had accurate data to send bills to those customers. After March 20th, we weren't able to gather the data in order to upload it to our to our systems in order to send those meters, to send those bills. So from March 20th until the end of March, those bills are essentially going to be estimated. And from the beginning of April until tomorrow, those bills are also going to be estimated. And from starting tomorrow until the end of the month, we will have accurate data to send bills. So what's been happening today is we've started gathering bills, what we call cycles. Each one of them has at least about 1,000, and we've been able to get about 6,000 customers are going to be having their bills sent out tomorrow or by the end of the week. And that would be for the month of March. And in the month of April, they will be able to get accurate reads, which will end up truing up at the end of those 2 months. So the first month will be estimated, but the second one, when we get actual reads, those bills will be more accurate. So since March 20th, the Utility Business Office has remained open. We've been taking payments using cash or checks. The only thing we haven't been able to get are credit cards. And even though customers haven't been getting their bills, we've been continuously encouraging them to put in something towards the bills to where it will lessen the burden whenever the actual bills start coming up. Late fees will be waived for the month of March and April. Payment arrangement will be made available for those that need them. We'll direct customers who need help to resources such as AdFact if they need those resources as well. Although we'll be doing quite a bit of estimating of bills, there will be about 3,000 customers who just fall right outside of these windows to where they will not receive bills that are estimated. Those are essentially the ones that had their bills read before early part of March and will have their bills read on the second part of April. Meter readers are going to start reading meters again starting tomorrow, and bills will start being more accurate at that point. I'll answer any questions you might have.
No online payments, though. That's what I've found personally.
That is correct, and we anticipate we don't have the credit card payments are not available right now, but we anticipate to be able to get those online payments up and running by the end of the week, unless we run into some unforeseen issues.
Ms. Smith?
Yeah, we're waiving late fees for customers.
That is correct.
Is TVA giving us similar grace on cost, on electric payments we're due to them, or are we going to have to pay for late fees to the TVA? I would hope they would give us some grace on this.
It shouldn't affect our ability to pay our bills to TVA, but if that ever comes up, we'll definitely talk about that. But as of right now, we don't foresee having issues paying our bills to TVA.
Thanks.
Mr. Suggs, you got any more comments?
Yeah, just a few concluding remarks. The first thing, I know this has been said before, but I'd like to say it again. This was the result of an outside actor acting on a vulnerability in our system. We regret that, and as Dr. Fitzgerald said, we've done everything within our power to make sure that those vulnerabilities are eliminated, and that the best minds that we can hire have helped us identify them. Dr. Fitzgerald talked about how hard her staff had worked, and that's absolutely true. I think it's important to realize that beginning on the 20th, we were basically standing around in the dark. To date, we've met both of the payrolls that have been done, and our employees can expect to be paid next time. We have the Kayenta system back online now so that the UBO is able to take payments, credit payments to the proper accounts in addition to the internal accounting that's done. Emails were reestablished today so that if someone is sending emails to the City of Oak Ridge, the existing email addresses that they have are now working, and that email is being delivered. We cut checks to our vendors last weekend. Over the weekend, we managed to produce, I forget the number, but a substantial number of checks to vendors who depend on us to pay their bills. And of course, as Arda said, the UBO is coming back online and being able to accept credit cards by the end of the week. So we've made, I think, a very respectable recovery. And again, as I've been watching it happen, I can't help but express my admiration for those involved. And if there's any questions that I can answer from my perspective, I'd be happy to.
Ms. Smith, you got another question?
Yeah, understand emails were back today for staff. Any prospect for when city council can access our council email accounts?
That will come when the internet is back on for the city. End of the week? Which, the email we have right now, we can't address on our mobile devices, and the problem you're running into is you don't have a city computer that's hardwired in.
Right. So, yeah, so internal email is working. We can email in and out on your iPads. We'll be setting up a time through Beth. I talked to her earlier today, and John James, our IT manager, to set up a time for you to get those back. We will be doing, like I said, we're going to the cloud, so it may take a few minutes, but we're working. I asked, make sure that that is a priority because I know you need that and expect that to be done this week.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking people may be expecting to get replies to us from messages they send, particularly if they hear that the city email's back on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Hammond?
A couple of real quick questions. This is a curiosity question. Are there any insurance coverages for stuff like this? I know you said we bought some software that's supposed to kind of keep this from happening again. If it does happen again, are there coverages associated with that at all?
This has been an ongoing discussion for at least 2018. When we had another city in Tennessee that got hit by a similar thing, only to discover that our insurance did not cover this kind of event at that time. So we are currently self-insured on this event, but it is part of the challenge is that when you read the riders and the policies, and we have reviewed these, they cannot tell you yes or no. I remember sitting down with our risk manager and talking through some of these and say, is this covered? And they're like, well, so we're currently self-insured on this incident with the hope that we will be recovering.
Sure. And the software that we spent, I guess, maybe $60-something thousand, are there guarantees associated with that software that costs $60,000?
It is a detection system. It is, as I said, there is nobody that is ever going to 100% guarantee anything, but it is designed to help detect and monitor, and it will have 24/7 monitoring to help identify any issues.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Fitzgerald. One more quick question. I know at one point I'm assuming we as councilmen, as employees had to take MTAS training on cybersecurity. Is there any discussion about training employees with regards to potential threats, whether it's phishing emails or some of these other kinds of ways that people end up getting into the system?
Yes, we have for a couple years had a really effective training program that goes out to all city employees, and I'm sure you have seen that also. In addition to that, I know several of us have taken the comptrollers. They offer security training, and we have, our folks do take training and ongoing training, and we're looking at doing additional training. But there's also a number of policies that will be put in place that will really tighten up our IT users policy that we have every city employee read and review and sign when they come on board. So we are taking a close look at that to make sure that everyone has the information they need and can identify and help identify those types of vulnerabilities. But
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Mr. Hope?
Yeah, this is for both you, Amy and Jack. So being self-insured in this incident like this, there's a pot of money, emergency response funds. We'll have to work on ways to put the money back. Is that something that you're going to be bringing forth to Budget and Finance Committee, to Council, so that we can start looking at that, identifying that? Or is it too early to tell yet? I mean, at some point, you'll come back to Budget and Finance to City Council and let us know. We're going to have to replenish those accounts, and for, God forbid we ever have it again, but we want to have the money there in case something like that comes up in the future. So is there some discussion or some order of things that you're going to be doing, bringing that in front of council?
I think that the first thing we're going to have to do is see if there's any means that we can recover some of these costs and what our impact deal will be. We certainly will reestablish the fund with adequate money to cover these kind of events. In my own simplistic mind, we have a very nice rainy day fund, and this is a rainy day. So
yeah,
but like all rainy day funds, this is a good time to reach in there and do this, knowing that we're okay. We can't have it happen every week, but then we'll get this fund reestablished quickly.
Yeah, and that's my thing, is that we don't want a perfect storm scenario where something else comes along and some other type of emergency comes along and we have to hit that rainy day fund again without coming up with a means to replenish that rainy day fund account.
Absolutely.
I will say that I just had my budget meeting March the 1st, and some of the items that we wound up having to do in a hurry were in the budget plan to come and talk to Budget and Finance Committee. So these, they just got purchased a little quicker than we thought they would be needed to space it out over a couple of budget cycles.
Thank you. All right, any other questions for staff? Thank you for that
Thank you.
comprehensive report. The next item of business is the consent agenda. There's one item that's going to come off the consent agenda at Ms. Smith's request, and we'll take it up in the next order of business, but that is item I, approval of the resolution to award a contract for the tennis courts. Madam Clerk, before we go any further, is there anything else that needs to be taken off the consent agenda, or is everything?
Everything else
Okay, that's
is
fine.
just fine.
All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? There are none. We are back on number I under the consent agenda, which we'll now take up. Madam Clerk.
A resolution awarding a contract to Sport Surface Pros LLC, Lake Forest, Illinois, to resurface the Jackson Square tennis courts in an amount not to exceed $60,000.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith, you had a question.
I've heard from a number of residents who had a variety of questions and concerns about this project. First, I'd like Mr. Hetrick to explain just what is going to happen with respect to resurfacing the courts and restriping them with respect to both tennis and pickleball. I think you've done a good job in addressing the concerns, so I'd like you to explain what's being done.
Sure, thank you very much for the opportunity. What we're doing, this is a periodic major maintenance of the tennis courts. We do this at all the tennis courts. And this is repairing the asphalt on the courts, filling cracks, filling low spots, and then resurfacing the courts with the colored and textured material that creates a safe, usable playing surface. In the last few years, we've seen a tremendous growth in the use of pickleball on these courts, or the playing of pickleball on these courts, in addition to tennis. And so a few years ago, we added some pickleball lines. There are 3 sections of courts at Jackson Square. We added pickleball courts to 2 of the courts in the very eastern section of courts. When we looked at resurfacing this year, and we received the funding to do the resurfacing, we decided that we would try to add some more pickleball lines to more courts. Originally, we had looked at a possibility, at a suggestion from a pickleball player, of adding courts on either side of the tennis net, which would effectively put 2 pickleball courts on each tennis court. That would double the number of courts. Right now, they use the tennis net. Some players have expressed concern with that, both from the standpoint that they would have to bring portable nets in order to use those courts, and also from the standpoint that they feel that the courts would be backed up to each other, and that would create a safety issue, and we don't want to bring that liability on. So what we've decided to do instead is that we will continue to use the tennis nets for pickleball, but we will expand the number of courts. We'll use the east and the central section of courts and put pickleball lines there. That will increase us from 2 to 5 pickleball courts while still leaving 3 courts for tennis. Tennis is not as popular as it used to be, but we do still have tennis players, so we don't want to exclude them from the facility that's been there for them for years. So that's the plan moving forward.
So all of the courts will be dual use, or?
Our intent is to do 5 of the courts dual use, and 3 would be tennis only still, so that tennis would still have an opportunity.
Okay. And the expectation is that pickleball players will use the tennis nets? Rather
Yes.
than, okay.
Yes.
And there won't be any perpendicular courts set up. That was one of the concerns I heard at one point.
No, there will not be. That is a method that's been used in some places to increase the number of courts, because pickleball courts are smaller than tennis. But concerns were raised about the safety of that, so we don't want to incur that kind of a liability, so we're not going to do that.
Okay. Well, I appreciate knowing what's being done. I think this addresses the concerns that I've heard from citizens, but I'm not sure that it does. I know that there are some pickleball and tennis players here who may want to ask additional questions. So, after we're done, they may want to come up and ask their questions as well. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for Mr. Hedrick? All right, is any members of the audience want to ask any questions on this particular subject? Oh, well, you have to come, you got to come up to the, yeah. Well, that's the rule. Name and address, ma'am.
Thank you. Dana Parker, 24 Rivers Court, Oak Ridge. The 3 things that we appreciate 5 courts. You have no idea.
All right, you need to address council.
Oh, sorry. We appreciate the 5 courts. Okay. It would be great if they could all be both to pickle and tennis, but we'll take 5. We hope that there's a sign on the tennis courts, pickleball courts at the high school that gives the rules as you go in the door. And we kind of hope that that would be the same thing down there as well as Jackson Square, so that when you get to the door to walk in, it's got a list of the things that you do and don't do, and that would be lovely. We also would like to have one of those say, no pets allowed. We pick up pet feces before we play because people bring their dogs down there, whether they're playing and bring their dog or they bring their dog as a pet place. I don't know, but there's quite an issue. So if we could have some good no pet signs, that'd be great. And if it was possible, I don't know where these signs are, but if you are down there and all 5 courts are being used by pickleball players, that there's a limit of 1 hour and that you graciously consent to let other people play after that 1 hour. That would be the only other thing. Is that good? Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I've lived in Oak Ridge for 45 years.
You got to give us your name and address,
Oh,
please.
I'm sorry. Ann Frome, 107 Oneida Lane, here in Oak Ridge. And when I first moved here, my husband and I were in the Oak Ridge tennis leagues until they shut down about 6 or 7 years ago because of, we moved here, there were about 400 people in the tennis leagues, and 6 or 7 years ago, the number dropped down to 10 or 12. and because of that, the league's disbanded. And most of the tennis players who play in the evening, the afternoon or evening. And most of the pickleball players play in the morning, usually in the morning. And so, and I live just a mile up from the tennis courts at Jackson Square, so for 45 years I drive back and forth almost every time I go out to anywhere. In the mornings at Jackson Square, there's hardly, during the weekdays, and most of the pickleball players play in the weekdays, there are hardly none of the courts being used for tennis, and the 2 courts that are being used for pickleball are used almost all the time, particularly when the weather's nice. So I think that it would be more practical to stripe all of the courts with pickleball and tennis, and I don't think there would be a conflict because we wouldn't be using our resources if we don't. So to effectively use our resources, I think they all should be striped.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Anyone else wishing to address council on this particular item? Okay. Any other questions by council?
I'd just like to comment that I hope the staff listens to the comments that were made tonight and continue consulting with the tennis and pickleball community, because clearly there are some very passionate people. So.
They most certainly are, and we will continue to do so. Thank you.
Mr. Hensley.
And I'd like to say something to my friend, Ms. Fromm, who just spoke. She's been giving tennis lessons in Oak Ridge since the early 70s when I was playing tennis. So thank you for your comments.
All right, any other questions or comments? The motion is to approve. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? There are none. It is approved unanimously. Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
Under final adoption of ordinances, you have an ordinance to amend ordinance number 27-85 titled A Personnel Plan for Employees of the City of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, as amended as follows: to amend section 6.10 titled Longevity Payments, to change the payment date from July to June, and to provide for a proportionate payment in the event of retirement, to amend section 11.1 titled General Leave, subsection F titled Buyback of Excess General Leave, to delete the second paragraph, which is now superfluous language that only applied to calendar year 2018, and to amend section 11.2 titled Emergency Leave, subsection E, titled Maximum Accumulation of Emergency Leave, to delete the subsection in its entirety without replacement, to remove language that is no longer applicable in light of the adoption of ordinance 01-2023, and I believe there's a substitute ordinance that's been prepared.
Yes, there's a substitute ordinance in your packet, and what that does is it adds the PAB action date of when PAB reviewed the item, and then it also makes an indication that PAB requested a little bit of a modification that city staff did not agree with moving forward on. So the language of the ordinance document, the text is the same from first reading. The only thing that's changed in the substitute is the addition of 2 whereas sections that talk about the PAB date and what their action was.
Move to accept with substitute ordinance.
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions for the city attorney? See none. All those in favor of the amendment indicate by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? There are none. We are back on the ordinance as amended. Mr. Suggs, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is essentially the same ordinance that was considered 4 weeks ago, or excuse me, 2 meetings ago. First of all, it moves the payment date to the same fiscal year as the liability is incurred in accordance with the recommendation of our auditor. Secondly, it provides a proportional payment for retirees so that they can receive a proportionate payment instead of trying to hang on until July 1st or some other date to receive their full payment. And then it has 2 housekeeping measures, first of which is eliminating a obsolete section that only applied to 1 year, and the second is deleting maximum emergency leave accumulation that was put in 2017. Both of those items both the housekeeping items have no practical effect at all in the change.
Any questions for Mr. Suggs? Seeing none, we are on the board. The motion is to approve.
It's working.
Ayes 7, no nays, and the ordinance is approved on second and final reading. Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
We have a resolution awarding a contract to G&W Diesel Emergency Vehicle Specialist, Knoxville, Tennessee, for the purchase of a 100-foot Pierce aerial fire apparatus in an amount not to exceed $1,981,116.30, utilizing the Purchasing Cooperative Sourcewell.
Move to approve. Moved and seconded. Chief Solomon.
Mayor, Council, what we're bringing for you tonight is a resolution allowing us to purchase the replacement of our 100-foot aerial. It is 25 years old, and the thing about this Pierce ladder truck and most of the apparatuses that are being built today, there's a long lead time. This particular apparatus is planning to be here in 25 to 27 months. Some other manufacturers was 36 to 48 months. So this goes right along with the department's approved vehicle replacement plan. Our current ladder truck is showing signs of fatigue. Every time we get the ladder tested, we have to do some additional welds and such to pass the ladder test. So 25 years, it's served its life as a frontline engine, frontline aerial. So it'll be a replacement of a 100-foot aerial. We chose Pierce Manufacturing. Several months we looked at different manufacturers, and the department decided on this particular one for safety. They were outstanding in the safety, the performance, the warranties, and most importantly, they actually have a service center that can do warranty work in Knoxville. Our current fleet is Suffin. There's not one in Tennessee. There's not a service center in Tennessee. So that was another factor so that we can actually have it serviced. This particular apparatus has they call it a command zone, and staff can actually see that in real time what that truck's doing. So our maintenance on our apparatus, our shop can actually see if this truck needs to be serviced. It will actually send them notification that it's time for servicing. Pierce Manufacturing, there's a packet, or in your packet, there's a story about the Oshkosh. Oshkosh actually purchased Pierce several years back, and Oshkosh is a big military contractor that builds for the defense and such, and they have taken their designs and research and development and put it into the fire apparatus. So taking in consideration of all that, we feel that Pierce is the top quality to protect our community.
And Chief, what about the current ladder truck? What are you going to do with it?
What our current plan is once in 25 to 27 months, we would like to retain the current ladder truck and place it out at Station 4. That will decrease the miles and the amount of responses.
And remind everybody where Station 4 is.
I'm sorry, West End, at the West End Fire Station, the ETTP site. That will allow us to protect the multi-story residential. It'll actually give us a reserve ladder, so where you have this new truck in for servicing, maintenance, whatever, would actually have a reserve. And also with industrial coming in, we'd actually have two aerial trucks that in case, unfortunately, something happened, we could actually put copious amounts of water.
Mr. Dodson.
Yeah, this is a quick question. So when you buy a car, you have a warranty on it. What kind of warranty will we have on this new truck?
Okay, so the frames of the truck is a 50-year warranty. They use a special coating called E-coating. They actually developed that. I believe the paint is like 20 years. The cab is 10 years. So and then there's like the warranties for the pumps
and such. So the warranties, they vary, but we did look at that as well, and really good warranties on these vehicles. Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Hope?
Chief, besides the truck itself, will there be any additional equipment that will need to be purchased for the new vehicle as it becomes the primary ladder truck for our community? And with our current ladder truck being 25 years old, none of the equipment necessarily may be able to be transferred over. Will there be an additional funding balance for any additional equipment for the ladder truck?
Yes, so we actually, Dr. Watson and I was discussing about placing additional funding into our equipment funds. So the next 2 years, 25 months, we're actually preparing and making these purchases so that it's not a one-time purchase. Some of the items that are on the current ladder truck can be transferred over, but we will evaluate and continue to evaluate the purchases, if that makes sense.
And the other question I'd have for you, with that truck, when it's aged and everything, I know you were talking about holding that truck in the fleet and putting that into a secondary role, reducing the miles and stuff, but will it affect the way we have to go about on the certification of the ladder truck, especially the aerial? Is there going to be any different type of certification that will have to be done on the older vehicle? The reason I say that is you don't want it to become, you're going to hit a tipping point at some point with that
Yes,
piece
sir.
of equipment, and it's going to tip over. The maintenance costs are going to be so high on that piece of equipment that it's no longer beneficial to the community to continue to have that in service. We still want it to, if we need it to, we want it to perform at the highest level.
That is correct.
It doesn't do us any good if a 100-foot ladder truck can only go 30 feet in the air.
You're exactly right, and it's a good point you brought up. Our overall goal is this will also play into the Station 5 plans, so that when we go to purchase a vehicle, right now we're planning and seeing how that looks with the growth. So when we purchase Station 5, we could actually purchase like a combination ladder engine and replace it at 4. By that time, I'm sure that ladder has reached its life expectancy, and then we can move our Station 4, current engine 4 into town for engine 5 for our new station. So that's some of the planning that we're working on, but that's a great point, and we have considered that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Ms. Smith?
Yeah, when I read this, I had the impression that one of the things you might use this truck for is just regular calls at Station 4, not ladder-related calls, so that the ladder might not be getting as much stress, but it would still be available for regular fire truck use, which seems sensible to me. So,
That is correct.
okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? The motion is to approve, and this will be on the board. Ayes 7, no nays, and the resolution is approved. Thank you, Chief. Next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution amending the city's electric department vegetation management contract with W.A. Kendall and Company LLC, Lawrenceville, Georgia, to increase the compensation amount for FY 2023 by an amount not to exceed $405,000.
Mr. Bye.
Mayor and council, an item for city council consideration is a request for additional fund to complete vegetation management for fiscal year 2023. Our tree trimming contract is divided in 2 areas. The first one is just a regular tree trimming of our zone, what we call our Zone 1 and Zone 2. And the second part of it is for what we call hourly work, which is geared more towards targeted areas, what we call danger trees, or trying to take out trees where customers are willing to let us take out, or residents are willing to take out, and maybe replanting some other trees that may have a maturity height that won't reach the power lines, which would reduce our costs over a long period of time on tree trimming. And we've been doing that a lot throughout the city, and that has contributed to the funds in that area to deplete. And we also have some other areas where the cost has accelerated the spending on those hourly work. And if these funds, if approved, if we don't use them if we don't have to use it by the end of this fiscal year, whatever is not needed is not going to be spent.
All right, questions, Ms. Smith?
Yeah, do you have accounting or records on the number of the number of calls you've gotten or incidents you've responded to of taking out a tree that wasn't necessarily in the plan? Has the number of those increased? The number of dead trees in the right-of-way that need to be taken out to get away from the line, for example?
Right, so what we try to do is especially, and we go back to our outage reports and we try to determine where we've been hurting the most in outages related to either trees or tree limbs. And we'll go in those areas and ask residents if on trees that are leaning towards power lines or dead trees, ask them if they will be willing to let us take those trees down and replace them with smaller trees that will reach a maturity height that is not that high. That has helped us with outages, especially, I hate to say a neighborhood right now, and then tomorrow a tree is going to fall over there, but that has helped us in neighborhoods such as Cumberland View. I'll say within the last 6 months or so, we've seen some result on targeted areas where we've been cutting trees.
So have we gone from, say, 100 trees like that in 1 year to 250 in 1 year or something? Do we have a trend in numbers that?
Unfortunately, I do not have that. That would be something that we could probably start tracking.
Yeah, that could be
Okay.
worth having. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
I was going to interject on there when we had a number of very long outages on the west side of town, we had consultation and said, you got to do something, and we did some rerouting of our existing services to help accommodate that on the west end. So hopefully we've seen a difference, and some of our areas only have singular lines such as whippoorwill out to the end. There's not a redundancy there, so we're having to use the vegetation management to kind of make sure that they're still in service even despite the winds and all the other things that happen.
Mr. Hope?
Ardo, as we increase our footprint across the city and our electrical needs across the city, is that taken into consideration to either with the primary funding stream for tree trimming and or any additional funds like for this when you isolate or determine you have a particular dead tree or area that you need to take care of? How do you anticipate that fund needing to go up over the next couple of years as we increase the footprint of the city?
That is correct. Yes, we anticipate that cost to go higher as we increase our footprint, but not that significant. And the reason for that is, fortunately for us, the footprint is increasing in mostly underground residential areas. If we want to take, for example, the Preserve or Harbor Point or Summit, most of those areas where our footprint is growing is in the underground areas. But we still have some overhead lines that we keep extending to serve those customers. That increases our footprint in the overhead areas.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Hammond.
Real quick, now this is just a comment to note based on what I'm reading, and if you would, make sure I'm accurately interpreting it.
Right.
And here we note the second portion is hourly work, and due to the increased collaborations with the property owners to replace the trees inside of right-of-ways, the funds allocated for hourly work have depleted faster than anticipated. The $405,000 that you're asking, it notes the additional $405,000 requested would cover work already completed and then enable the electric department to perform additional work necessary in order to minimize power outages due to trees and tree limbs. And the way I read that, it looks like you all prioritize the collaborating with the property owners and making sure they were taken care of over and against stopping and saying, oh, wait, we gotta go back and go away to city council and wait for another month or two before we can come back and continue helping you all out. Is that an accurate interpretation of that?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Thank you for prioritizing the work with the community and the citizens and getting trees taken care of over and against some of the logistics of what we've got here. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? The motion is to approve, and we're on the board. Ayes 7, no nays. The resolution is approved. Next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing the purchase of various materials for upgrades to the existing overhead electric lines from Blair Road to the edge of Horizon Center Industrial Park along State Route 95 in an amount not to exceed $404,793.70 for use by the Electric Department.
So move.
Moved and seconded. Mr. By again.
Mayor and council, this item is for you to consider, is the consideration to purchase a material for line upgrades of existing overhead line from Blair Road to the edge of Horizon Center along State Route 95. So at the intersection, on Blair Road, right before you get to State Route 95, we have an existing line that goes into right in front of the Wheat Church and onto State Route 95 and goes right at the edge of the Horizon Center. Currently, we have one circuit over there, and we would like to beef up that line and add 2 additional circuits that would add capacity to the park at a voltage of 13.2 kilovolts. And it will only bring it right at the edge of the park. It will not take it all the way inside the park. We've went through the city's competitive bidding process, and we had 5 different bidders. And we basically went line by line and looked at different items to find out which one was more economical, and based on how economical it was and based on lead time. If it did cost a little bit more money, and that item is on the shelves and it would help us get our project quicker, we went with that item that cost a little bit more and would get here in a couple of weeks rather than 3 or 6 months from now. And as a result, we've had something from each one of those 5 bidders, and we've aggregated it at a total cost of about $404,793.70. And that will not include the lines that will be necessary to go inside the park, and those materials are going under the city's bidding process right now, and as soon as they're completed, we'll try to come back here to the next city council to purchase those as well.
Ms. Smith.
Yeah, you mentioned delivery times, and the bid sheets we have don't show the expected delivery dates. Are all of these within what we used to consider a reasonable delivery time of weeks instead of years?
Correct. That is correct. Yes,
good.
ma'am.
So the supply chain is loosening up a bit.
On these items, yeah,
Okay,
yes, ma'am.
that's good. Thanks.
Any other questions? The motion is to approve, and we're on the board. Ayes 7, no nays, and the resolution is approved. Thank you, Mr. Bott.
Mayor, can I make a comment?
Mr. Hensley.
Yeah, I just got a text message here from Mr. Norm Dobbs. He said the audio is not working on the Channel 12 council broadcast.
Okay, thank you. Next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution awarding a contract to Recreational Concepts LLC, Cookeville, Tennessee, to design and construct an inclusive playground at Highland View Park in an amount not to exceed $300,000.
So move.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Hedrick.
Yes, thank you. We were recently made aware of the opportunity to use some CDBG funding to upgrade a playground in a qualifying neighborhood. And after taking an analysis of the playgrounds that we have in those qualifying areas, we determined that Highland View is the one that would be most suitable for this project. So what we're doing is we have a resolution here to award a contract for design and construction of an inclusive playground. To make the distinction, all of our playgrounds are currently meet all ADA standards. This is something that would go a step further. It would become a better access for children with handicaps, and it would address the needs of those whose handicaps are not necessarily addressed by ADA standards, such as autism. It would be more broad-based and more inclusive, and that's the goal. It's something that's becoming very common within the playground industry, and something that I think would be great for Oak Ridge to have as sort of a model project, potentially to serve as a model for future playground builds in the city.
Mr. Dotson.
First of all, I think this is a great synergy between that and the Children's Museum and the Highland View neighborhood. I think that's an excellent program over there, and that's going to provide a lot of value to that area. All-inclusive playgrounds, again, are more than ADA compliant. They are for a lot of different ranges on the spectrum. Hopefully, this will be a great model, like you mentioned, that we could actually imitate in other areas of the city of Oak Ridge. Can't wait to see it build out, and possibly even other playgrounds have organizations within the city get on board and try to support other builds like this. So thank you, Mr. Hedrick, for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Hammond.
This is just a quick story, a little historical perspective on this, but then in some ways it's also a testimony, maybe a bleed over from Resurrection Sunday on yesterday. But with that being said, really, when we were doing the playground for the Scarborough community, right across the street from the preschool, the opportunity working with a group here about who are passionate about inclusive playgrounds, we began exploring the opportunity to actually make that playground, an inclusive playground, a part of that project. The timing didn't necessarily match up, and we didn't want to adversely impact the funding that we had available for that in efforts to do fundraisers and bridge the gap between the $125,000 that we had and the $300,000 that the park costed. And so we stepped back and we opted not to do that. But I thought that was a worthwhile venture. And to be quite honest and frankly, I really began praying about that, and I prayed about that, and I prayed about that, and lifted it up to the Lord. And so when they mentioned this opportunity that kind of came up for us to spend the extra CDBG funding, I actually, we were in a meeting with Jack, and I was about to ask him about this project and say, hey, is there a possibility we can put this in there? They'd already looked at it, and they'd already put it in. And so now we've got the project fully funded, and it's going at the Highland View, as opposed to trying to raise $175,000 in the course of a year to try and get that done. And so I just wanted to say thank you for your work both in that project and in this one, and to also just acknowledge that I really do serve a good God.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion is to approve, and we're on the board. Ayes 7, no nays. It is approved. Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
A resolution awarding a contract to Morgan Contracting Incorporated, Knoxville, Tennessee, for repair and rehabilitation of portions of the city's sanitary sewer collection system in an amount not to exceed $1,725,000.
Second.
Mr. Flynn.
Yes. This is a contract for continuing rehab on our sewer system. Last major contract we actually did was in 2019. COVID came along, it slowed down our processes, if you will. We started picking out the locations for this contract and have been working on it for quite some time. We went to SRF and got a loan. Unfortunately, the actual bid prices came in considerably more than were anticipated. So what we have done is essentially reduced the scope of the contract, and we took items out that we felt like we could get done in either using other means or possibly defer them for future.
And how much was it reduced? What's the scope of the work? How much was the scope of the work reduced?
The scope of work now is about $1.7 million. The bid actually came in at a little over $3 million. The loan amount was 1.9, which included the engineering. So it came in, close to 100% over.
Okay, but my question is, approving this will reduce the original scope of the project by, how much work?
Dollar-wise, it takes out about 1 point.
I can do the math. I'm trying to figure out what's been reduced from the scope of the project.
Okay, what we took out wasn't feet of pipe, it was manhole repairs and point repairs. The feet of pipe in it, the 9,000 foot of cured-in-place pipe, is still in there. There was a couple of dig and lay projects that we took out that we can do in the future. There's one dig and lay project in it that required easements that are tied to this contract, so we kept that in. Majority of what we took out was either point repairs or manholes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Other questions for Mr. Flynn? Ms. Smith?
Yeah, does the reduction in scope on this give us any potential problems with continuing to maintain our sewage system compliance?
I don't think so. The reason we took out, the way we made our choices was because we have separate contract that we can do the manholes with another vendor. And we also have the ability to get point repairs done independent of this contract. So that was one of the rationale that we used for how we were choosing what to take out.
Okay.
We can still get a lot of that work done. We just have to do it using different means.
Okay, so the scope of this contract is determined in large part by the fact that there's a particular pot of money that needs to be handled as one single project, but there are pieces that you had in that project that can be taken out and handled otherwise.
Yeah, the work that we're taking out, we're doing with other program funds.
Okay.
As opposed to loan funds.
Okay, this makes sense. Thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Flynn on this project? Seeing none, the motion is to approve, and we're on the board. Ayes 7, no nays. The resolution is approved. Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
A resolution awarding a contract to W&O Construction Company Incorporated, Livingston, Tennessee, for the replacement of the existing Oak Hills pumping station in an amount not to exceed $455,600.
With Rowan County, I agree.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Flynn.
This is a contract to replace the pumping station located on the west end of town down near the guard shack. That pumping station is about 30 years old now, and the west end growth has exceeded the capacity of the pump. This project, we have ARPA funds. This is eligible for that. This project is also in Rowan County, which means that we have a cost sharing with Rowan County's funds.
Questions about the Oak Hills project? Seeing none, the motion is to approve, and we are on the board. Ayes 7, no nays. Resolution is approved. Next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution awarding a contract to Stubbs Construction Services LLC of Crossville, Tennessee for replacement of designated sidewalks along Highland Avenue and Tuskegee Drive to be replaced with new ADA accessible sidewalks and ramps in an amount not to exceed $460,660.
Moved and seconded.
I'll go ahead and take this one too.
Okay, great.
Since I'm here.
That's fine.
Joint effort here between ourselves and community development. Community development identified some funds in CDBG that were available for ADA work, for sidewalk work. We took the CDBG area that was applicable, took the ADA study and overlaid the two, picked out some large runs of sidewalk that were shown to be in the ADA study as high priority. We also found an intersection that wasn't anywhere near compatible, which was Hillside and Highland. So we're going to put ramps in there. Anyway, we overlaid the two, took the budget, and came up with what we thought was probably the best combination of locations to use those funds for.
All right, questions for Mr. Flynn on this project? And the CDBG funds are available, correct?
Correct.
All right. Any questions? Seeing none, the motion is to approve, and we're on the board. Ayes 7, no nays. The resolution is approved. Next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution appointing Jack L. Suggs as interim city manager effective May 5th, 2023, for a term to coincide with City Council's recruitment process for a successor upon the retirement of Mark S. Watson.
So move.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Ackard?
Yes, I placed this item on the agenda after consultation with the mayor to designate someone as interim city manager. So that would be the deputy city manager of Jack Suggs, to take effect on the day of Dr. Watson's retirement that is coming up on May 5th.
All right, and any questions about the contract? I know I think it's been discussed by staff with members of council. Mr. Dawson.
Yeah, Mayor, I don't have any questions about the contract, but I have all faith in Mr. Suggs to perform this duty, and looking forward to working with you.
Mr. Hensley.
Jack, thank you for being available and willing.
Mr. Hammond.
I don't have any questions about the contract, but this Jack Suggs guy, man, do we even know him? No, I'm messing with you. Looking forward to working with you, man. Looking forward to working with you, and congratulations.
Ms. Smith.
Yeah, I appreciate Mr. Suggs' availability and willingness to both have been second in command on a number of projects with Dr. Watson in recent months, and to be available to bridge over to the new city manager, and hopefully help support the new city manager in making a very, very smooth transition. So glad to have you do this, and hope that you don't regret the decision. So.
Mr. Hope.
Yeah, just again, Jack, thank you for taking on this role. I've worked with you on a number of different projects over the years, and your integrity and your honesty and your straightforwardness is greatly appreciated. We really appreciate that, and continue to have that conversation with us. So I look forward to you taking over and handling and expanding these roles for you.
Mr. Suggs, you got any comments?
Only
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I only have maybe two things to say, and the first one is it's been a pleasure working as the deputy for Dr. Watson. My intention is to try to keep the good work that he started moving forward for the next few months. The second thing is just a heartfelt thank you for your confidence in me, and I look forward to both filling this role and then helping the selected permanent city manager as he moves into the community to get to know everybody and keep us going in the right direction. But thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, the motion is to approve. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? There are none. The resolution is approved.
Congratulations.
The next item of business is appearance of citizens. Citizens shall be permitted to address City Council about matters that are not on the agenda this evening. Any citizen wishing to do so shall raise his or her hand and proceed to the lectern after recognition. You'll state your name and address and the purpose of your appearance before council. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes and shall relate to matters of city business. They shall not generally result in a formal response or action at the time of the presentation, because in most cases neither council nor the staff will be prepared to respond effectively. However, I may answer the questions, direct the city manager to do so, or ask the city manager to work with the citizen to effect resolution of the matter. Statements that are purely political in nature will not be allowed, such as campaign speeches or announcements of candidacy for office, nor will announcements of a civic or social event that is unrelated to city business. Are there any members of the audience wishing to address council? Looking to my left, my right, start on, yes, on the outside. Yes, ma'am.
Again, my name is Sheila Caldwell Massey. I am the owner of 101 West Price Lane. Mr. Gooch, I have left message for you. Mark Watson, I've spoke with the chief. I need an answer why I am being intimidated, why I am continue to fight this hate crime. I call the police, I go to jail. I need an answer.
Okay. Man, I'm sorry, will you give me your last name one more time?
Sheila Caldwell Massey.
Massey, Miss Massey.
I was here January 10th, 2021 with the same issue. It has not resolved. It has escalated.
And it's related to?
A hate crime, bully, intimidation, you name it. I'm fighting it. I can't even sleep. John Kelly was at my house 3 weeks ago when I had a driveway put in because I personally went to the city and got a handicap for me to park. The people across the street, my neighbors that I've been complaining, the police been out there numerous of times.
Okay. Ms. Massey, let me just say for the record, if you've called me,
I talked to your wife. You were in Nashville.
Okay, all right.
But anyway,
All right,
I just want to answer because I am a citizen.
Yes, ma'am.
I am a taxpayer. I am a widow of a veteran. And I'm not going to continue to live in fear. When I call the police, I go to jail. The same police officer wrote the complaint that I reported. He goes back to my neighbor and get one. They get me for harassment. Well, John Kelly was there 3 weeks ago. The neighbor across the street came over and approached the guys was pouring my concrete. Nothing was done. We're going to do it right. I'm going to be treated fair.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Watson, you or Chief Smith, can you please?
Yeah, I think I received Ms. Massey's phone call here a couple weeks ago, and I've asked the chief to investigate and give me background on that. And so he's here tonight. I'll be glad to meet with Ms. Massey and hear from her. I know it's difficult sometimes to connect, but we have made that effort.
But I wrote you a letter last year and notarized it and sent it to you, mailed it to you, also to Chief Smith. Yes, I have talked to Chief Smith. He's willing to work things out, but this needs to stop.
I understand, and this is not the forum to do that.
Well, I need to bring it before the city council because they don't know. I've talked to Ms. Smith about the situation. She called me. And her whole scenario was different. I shouldn't have to live in fear. You don't live in fear. I'm not going to live in fear.
Chief Smith.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Sheila, for being here. Captain Kelly has directed Sergeant Barry Bunch to contact Ms. Massey and the neighbors that live across the street to try to mediate a peace between them to try to resolve the issues that they have. So I don't think he's gotten through to everyone yet, but that's who's been assigned to work those things out. We will continue to respond every time we're called. We'll continue to address and apply whatever ordinances or laws are appropriate at that time, and we'll always treat it like it's a new situation when we go and try to be open-minded and listen to what both parties have to say.
Well, what time frame are we talking about? Because I have.
Mr. Hammond, you got a comment?
Yeah, oh, just a real quick question. Ms. Massey, is this the same incident?
Yes, it is. I went to jail September 28th, but I made the complaints.
September this past of 2022?
2022, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I'm going to work with and insert. I didn't realize this was still going on.
Well, Chief didn't know I went to jail.
So I want to be a part of the meetings and the conversations, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate that.
What time frame are we talking
Okay.
about? Because I'm not going to wait forever. I can't even sleep at night.
Yes, ma'am. We'll start on right away.
Well, John Kelly said he was going to have officers ride through. Only one officer's been through, and that was Officer Leach.
We'll work on it. We'll get Ms. Massey and we'll work out a date,
Yeah.
work out a schedule
Okay.
to meet.
And you'll obviously communicate with the manager, but also communicate with Mr. Hammond and inform or advise council of the actions that are taken as a result.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Ms. Massey, thank you. All right, any other citizens? Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Martin McBride, 954 West Outer Drive in Oak Ridge. I'd like to talk about the EMDF proposal by DOE. I've sent you a number of emails over the last couple of months. I appear before you on a number of occasions. Basically, this comes down to a question of the council involvement in decisions the department makes that has an economic impact on the city. In the past history, tradition is that this council has not formally gotten involved in those kinds of things, and essentially has said, okay. This past fall, there was a public meeting on the EMDF, and I think 6 of the 7 council members appeared and informally gave their okay to this waste storage proposal without invoking the council process. Now, what that does is tells DOE that there's a big green light here for any kind of waste storage or anything basically they want to do to us. Our competitors are going to have a field day with a permanent waste storage place here. They'll call it a waste dump, and Oak Ridge is going to become home to a national nuclear waste dump. And we need some balance, some economic payments to allow us to also erect some economic draws to the city to counterbalance the negative effects of that publicity. You're the only ones that care about our economy. DOE doesn't, neither does EPA. So what I'm going to ask you is whether you will consider a resolution at your upcoming meeting that rejects the current EMDF proposal pending economic negotiations with DOE. And the pending is important. This is not a unilateral rejection. This is conditional, meaning that if DOE then comes and sits down at the table and is prepared to be reasonable with the city, then the rejection goes away. But this is an important first step. There's an awful lot, there's a huge amount of waste out on the reservation. And you've now given a big green light for it to be all dumped into Oak Ridge and us to become one of the nation's largest nuclear waste storage facilities. I think now's the time to speak up and say something. So will you consider, who here will consider a resolution at the next meeting that rejects the EMDF pending DOE negotiations on the economics?
Thank you, Mr. McBride.
I have a question.
Now, wait a minute. Okay, ask your question, but then I may interject.
I'd like to get your contact information because of this malware attack. I'm missing the emails you're talking about, and I would very much like to see them.
All right. Ms. Smith?
Yeah, I'm confused. I've been objecting to this EMDF for something like 13 years when they first started talking about it. And it's clear that, my objections as a citizen or as a city official mean nothing to the federal agencies. So I have trouble understanding what benefit a resolution would have at this point. They've made up their minds.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
If we spoke with one voice, it wouldn't be a
Mr.
waste of
Hensley?
time.
Okay. That's, at this point, that's, at this point in the meeting, that's out of order, so. I'm reminding you of the rules. With all due respect. I can blame that for. Okay, all right. Any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
Still on. Tamara Gunter, 105 Viola Road, behind St. Mary's. I am a member of the Oak Ridge Land Bank. I was elected by some of you. Some of you did not vote for me, but that's okay. I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm here to talk on a positive note, perhaps end the citizen commentary on a positive note. I am so excited about the Scarborough redevelopment and recreation and creation of housing and new houses and new stuff in Oak Ridge was the whole reason I wanted to be on the land bank, period. The whole reason. I had no other motive than that. And we have been bogged down with other things, and we've not been able to help Scarborough or other places in this town that needs help. And I won't use up my whole 3 minutes, but I will just say I've already promised Maria and Tom whatever I can do, not as a land bank member, but just as me, that I'm going to help them with whatever they need. And I hope you guys do the same.
I appreciate your comments, and I share
Thank you,
your
Your Honor.
concerns.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment? Yeah, tomorrow.
Ellen, did you have something?
The combination of the Housing Authority and the Land Bank is something that we haven't done very much of in the past, and I think we have an opportunity now to meld those two.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments in the audience? Seeing none, elections, appointments, announcements, and scheduling. Mr. Suggs, do you have a couple that you want to mention? This note?
We have a couple of things that we'd like to bring to the attention of the council and the public at large. May 5th is Dr. Watson's last official day with the city as city manager. May 4th, we're going to have a reception for Dr. Watson. The community is invited. There'll be several other specific guests invited, certainly you. The reception will be held at the Town Suites Hotel right over there on Wilson Street in the room. It'll be from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. We certainly hope that each of you can attend and that other members of the community as well. There will be I have asked Dr. Watson, and he has agreed graciously to come back to council the following Monday one last time. He won't be sitting in the chair, but it'll be a chance perhaps for us to say a more formal thank you and goodbye from him from a council perspective.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, I want to take the opportunity to report on travel that I undertook at city expense recently, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that. I attended the National League of Cities Congressional Cities Conference in D.C., basically the last full weekend of March, and beginning of the following week. So I missed your meeting with the city, with the schools, other than trying to listen on the phone. It was a pretty intense meeting, a lot of information exchanged, and since I had to get most of it on my phone, I still haven't extracted it to other places. Most of the meeting information was by app, and I didn't have my iPad to use. But a few things I wanted to highlight that I heard about. One, under the Inflation Reduction Act, there's some really interesting opportunities for us if we have the bandwidth to pursue some of the things that are out there to be done. One that I've noted with interest is that there's an arrangement where certain tax credits can now be used by city governments, by local governments and nonprofits, rather than being strictly for tax-paying entities. And in fact, the Treasury will be paying people, providing cash at the upfront rather than waiting for several years of tax credit to take effect. And one area that I've noted with great interest is one relating to construction of new buildings or renovation of existing buildings that have great energy efficiency involved. And I think that our project for the conference center is one where we may be able to make some savings by using that particular program. It's not, some of these require that it be in a low-income neighborhood or disadvantaged neighborhood, which that is not, but we can get benefits from using apprentice programs in part of the construction if that's possible. So that's something I'm excited about as an opportunity for us. A couple other things that I found interesting. One was a report that the summer feeding program may be expanded. I'm not sure of the details of this, but there is a program that provides for feeding during the summer for kids who are normally beginning schools, and probably also including some basically credit cards or debit cards for parents to provide food during those vacation periods, rather than having to send the kids to a congregate feeding site. That was pretty exciting. There's also indication from the agricultural department that the school lunch program I think was going to be expanded to schools with a lower threshold of free and reduced lunches than has been in the past. So that's something for us to look at and communicate with the schools on. There were some interesting discussions of a couple of $1 billion, if you can believe this, for urban forestry and tree planting, which is something else that the USDA guys said that they'd never done that kind of spending on urban forestry before. But that may be an opportunity for us to do some good things with trees in our community, such as getting rid of trees we should get rid of and replacing other ones. And there are some grant programs that are flying fast, but one that has interested me was the, because I have EVs at my house, was a program for electric vehicle charging units. They've already done the program for high-speed or high-capacity units along interstate highways, but there is also a community infrastructure program for EV charging. The grant program is out on the street right now. Deadline is May the 30th, but they said that the minimum grant was expected to be $500,000, which tells me that we probably need to partner with somebody else for a smaller project for our community, either partner with the TPO, or apparently there are some companies that might be willing to partner. But there's some interesting opportunities to do some nice things for our community using some of these federal programs that are rolling out fast and furious. So those are a few that I wanted to share. But I appreciate the chance to learn about these things, and networking is always a part of these meetings. I talked to a bunch of people in other cities about current and recent experiences hiring city managers. Got lots of interesting war stories. People made mistakes that I can't imagine us ever doing. So let's leave it at that.
All right. Any other announcements or scheduling? Seeing none, requests for new business items or future briefings. Mr. Dodds, Mr. Gleason.
Yeah, real quick, just wanted to follow up on the place-based innovations RFI that Department of Energy had released. We had an opportunity to join with Oak Ridge National Lab as they pulsed a number of area communities for their input to that. This was a Department of Energy request for information that had to do with the transfer of intellectual property into local communities surrounding national lab sites. So certainly appreciate the outreach from ORNL asking for input to that documentation.
Mr. Dodson.
I don't know how to begin on this. I'll just go ahead and start. First of all, I think we're very blessed in the city of Oak Ridge to have such a strong police force, and I really appreciate being able to work side by side with you all. We're very fortunate, too, to have very competent, very well-trained, and very well-educated and compassionate SROs in our schools. I'll call out three of them. Askren, Officer Askren, who is with Robertsville, as well as sharing the responsibilities with Willowbrook, as well as Linden, I believe. And then we also have Officer Vic Owen, a wealth of experience there. He's at Jefferson Middle School, as well as Woodland and Glenwood. And then we have Officer Swigert, who is at Oak Ridge High School. So we have three. And I'm very, very grateful for having our three SROs. I know our students not only feel more safe with them, but they also identify with our police force a lot better than if it would be an adversarial relationship. They're there for us. With that being said, we had something horrific happen more recently in Nashville at Covenant School, and that's where we had 3 students and we had 3 teachers who were gunned down at that school. And I am looking for and responding to a lot of information that I'm getting from parents, wondering how we can be even more responsive and more well-prepared in the Oak Ridge schools. Doing a little research, I looked at Anderson County. I think they have 17 schools, and they have 15 school resource officers there. And in Roane County, I think we have 15 to 16 schools, and we have 11 SROs there. And then in Morgan County, we have 7 schools, and we have 6 SROs there. And in Oak Ridge, we actually have a total of 9 schools if you include the Secret City Academy as well as the preschool. So we have quite a few schools there. And I think it's important to think about how could we address this. And I don't necessarily think it's just a city responsibility. I think it's something that we can partner with our schools. I'm in a unique position as being a school teacher, and I see this every day, but also sitting on city council, but more importantly, being a citizen in our community and knowing how important safety is. That's the number one thing that we talk about in our schools. More than anything else, it's safety, and then after that, the hierarchy of needs goes a little bit down on that. But with that being said, I would suggest council request for new business. I would like for us to possibly look at having this on our work session and talk more about this. Open dialogue with council as well as our police force, as well as our school officials, and talk more about this and how can we increase the presence of trained officers who want to be in our schools. Sometimes you have a trained officer who doesn't necessarily want. We want to have some trained officers who do want to be in our schools. And I won't bear the burden just on our schools. I think more recently, $140 million to establish school resource officers was in grants from is being awarded, hopefully, from the state. Governor Lee is appropriating some of those monies for that use primarily. And if some of that grant money could come to us, I think that would be important. So short term, how do we solve this problem? How do we work on this with regards to having more of a police presence in our schools? Long term, how could we do even better than just 3 more police officers? Could we go up to a higher number? But I'm open to listening, and I know, I'm not going to say I know, but I feel that most, if not all of council would agree with that, and that we feel like the safety of our students and our staff in our schools is very important. So I wanted just to bring that out and possibly have that on a future work session.
Let me respond to that if I can.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Within 2 days of the incident in Nashville, Chief Smith and I spoke, and police presence in terms of visits was increased that week. We're now undergoing an assessment, a joint assessment between the Oak Ridge Police Department and the city school system in terms of a security review assessment of all of the schools. Chief Smith is here. He can respond to that where we are. I certainly think when that assessment is concluded, it would be timely and a substantive subject matter for council to discuss in conjunction with the school system. But I just wanted everybody to know that that is being looked at, and quite frankly, the possibility of adding security features, adding additional SROs was being discussed, and was being discussed, quite frankly, before the governor made his statements. Certainly, we need to look into that if that funding is made available in grants during this legislative session. Chief Smith, you got anything to add? And Mr. Dotson, I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, sir. Matter of fact, Captain Tedford provided me some information on where we are on our fiscal security assessments. We do fiscal security assessments each year. The SRO does it together with the school principal of each school, so they schedule it with the principal. Last week they completed Willowbrook and Woodland Elementary Schools. This week they should have Jefferson Middle and the high school completed. They have Robertsville scheduled for April 18th, and the other 4 have not been scheduled yet. So they'll be working with the principals to get those 4 schools scheduled to get the fiscal security assessments done. And there's an instrument they use. It's a checklist that they use for all schools in the state of Tennessee. This will be our 2nd year doing these assessments this way. So we do this an annual review.
And perhaps it would be timely to at least have a preliminary discussion at our May work session. That would give another 30 days in terms of the assessments to be completed in conjunction with the school system.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and Mayor, I would by all means agree with that. I think that would be terrific. If we had more information about it, we can make better decisions. And again, I appreciate you being proactive in working with our schools and doing some of those things. Just a backstory on some of the things that you all have done for us. You have given us a smaller version of the crisis intervention team training, and you've been in our schools and talked to our staff, which we really appreciate. So it's more than just cameras in the school, and it's more than just a police car out in front, but it's that active part where you're actually coming into the schools and you're working with our staff, and we appreciate that. And I agree with the mayor. I'm looking forward to having more dialogue with our police force. And thank you again. And I want to give a shout out to my officer Owen in our school. He's one of our most valuable staff members, and we count him as a staff member, a part of our family, and it's more than just a security guard. So
Yes,
thank
sir.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can I answer any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do.
Mr. Hammond.
Just real quick, I just think it's important to note that while we've got 3 officers, would you speak to the excellent job that you guys do in maintaining a presence so that there's no one listening to this that walks away and feels like we're underserving the schools here in Oak Ridge when it comes to security. So make sure, if you don't mind, speak to that so that everybody's aware that while we've got 3, we are making sure that our children and our schools are safe.
Thank you, sir, for bringing that up. And sometimes the officers are very creative in the way they do that. Not only do they get out of their cars and walk through, but whenever now that the mobile data terminals in the cars are working again, they will use their laptops. A lot of times they'll park at a school and work on the reports just so that there's a black and white sitting there in front of the school. And I got to tell you, when the mayor called me, when that was going on, and the schools had called, I was talking to Dr. Borchers and Mr. Lay, and they were asking, can we increase presence there? And I really just didn't have any more officers to send at that moment. And I told the mayor this story. So I was talking to Captain Kelly, and I said, well, John, we're not doing anything. I said, we can't use our computers, we can't use email. Let's go start hitting schools. And so the 2 of us just started going and checking out at schools and going in and talking to people. And I kind of needed that. You know, that made me feel like I was doing something worthwhile. So appreciate John Kelly's leadership. So yes, sir, we try to do that.
And I'm going to mention one more thing, and then I'll yield. As Councilman Hope, Councilman Hammond, and myself have been working on the compensation committee and looking at not only better compensation, better fringe benefits, but also trying to have more police force on our police force. That's really important. So moving forward, hopefully we can continue to look at not just patrol officers, but across the board for something like this.
It has made a huge difference in our recruitment, our retention of employees.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Mr. Watson, are you prepared to give your last city manager's report?
I've been kind of quiet tonight, but so quiet leadership is good sometimes. Just a couple things. Reminder, we will have a very important budget and finance committee meeting this month. We've got several questions that we need to kind of bring up on budget and talk to the group on, so we can get Jack in position to presenting you something in May. I've also asked Finance Director to put a calendar out so that you can get that marked in. I know it's been inconvenient with the iPads and the calendars and those kinds of things. We will always have a hard copy in mailboxes of events, whatever, and I know Valerie does a pretty good job in letting you know that, hey, you've got a box full of reports or other information. The work session, we are planning work session for this month, and we'll be working on this week. If there's something that you'd like to have addressed at that, we can bring that up. We've already got the SRO question and discussion taken care of. We've got to look at how we recruit additional officers. And remember, you don't want a rookie necessarily in the school, so that means you're taking out of your officer element on the street. And so it's a very critical decision as far as overall safety for the community, not just in the in the schools. So my last comments is that Mayor asked me a funny question the other day, and that question was, what was it like 12 years ago when you arrived, and what have we done? And I would just say that there were a lot of compounded decisions that were just sitting there, and we had really needed to make decisions, move ahead. You know, why should building a pre-K need to take 25 years to make that decision? And I think we're going to continue to see the need to make those decisions. The world's moving faster, not slower, not analytical, and I think we're going to be able to accomplish some great things within the community. The assets are here, and the ability to move ahead is super. It can't happen without your leadership as a group. Warren and I become great friends Sunday afternoon about 2 o'clock, and we go over the actions of the week and things that are happening, and so there's a constant communication that the community doesn't necessarily solve. And when you throw a big problem at it, you've got an organization, I believe, that is prepared to respond, such as we've seen with the recent hacking. And so I thank you for 12 and a half enjoyable years, really, of service. It's not often that a city manager gets to plant a seed and actually see it germinate and grow while he or she is there. And we've seen that happen with malls and AMSI and riverfronts and 8th lanes and parks and different things. So it's been exciting to see those things happen. I couldn't have done it without good legal advice and all of the work by our folks. So thank you very much. And I guess Johnny Carson used to say good night or So,
Well, good night tonight, but remember, you're still here till May the 4th, so. Thank you. There'll be more discussion and responses about your service and exemplary service to the city at a later date. Does the city attorney have any additional comments? Not a thing.
Yeah, I don't get to retire, so I'll just, So,
All right.
yeah, I'll take good notes for you.
All right. Seeing no other business and having completed that which is before us, I will adjourn this meeting, and I thank everyone for their presence and your participation, and good night.